this is when it became very interesting, because in that absolute chaos is when I actually had a calmness come over me. There was this calmness. It was almost like an embrace, or it felt as if a bubble of light that was tangible came around me. It was almost, like this bubble protected me, it calmed me, and it's as if I began to rise above the accident, rise above that scene. And it was strange to me, because I had read about tunnels of light and things like that, but this was different. And I realized in that moment that I seemed to be okay, that all the injuries were gone. And as I became, grounded in, wow, am I really okay? I realized my wife, who I knew was deceased at the scene, was also there. In fact, she was right there with me, and she was okay too, except she was saying to me, you can't come, you can't be here, you've got to go back. You've got to go back. That was the conversation we were having. And the interesting thing in that moment is I was realizing, yes, I do have to go back. I mean, it was a very poignant choice, because there I was looking at the woman I loved more than life, and yet I knew I had a little boy in the backseat of that car, and I made the conscious decision to go back. And as soon as I had the thought, I'm going back, it became strange, because I found myself wandering around a hospital. So I have no concept of time, being held in that calm light. But I later found that people arrived at the scene of the accident. One of them was a doctor. They were able to assist me. They handled the scene a very professional way. They rushed myself and my oldest son, who was not hurt very badly. He had banged up his wrist and his ribs, but he basically walked away from the scene physically. But emotionally, he thought he had lost his whole family. So, they rushed us to a local hospital. They could see there was nothing they could do for me there, so they life flighted us to a bigger city, Salt Lake City, where I could be seen to in a more equipped trauma center. But I had no conscious thought of that. All I knew is I had wrecked the car. I had had this strange rising above the scene. I had said the most poignant goodbye I would ever say. And here I was wandering through a hospital.
And I remember you were saying in the book that when you were wandering in the hospital, you could actually see through people in a way, that you could feel and hear them, what they were thinking, that you kind of just knew them by heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a very profound thing. That changed my life, quite honestly, because as I saw the people, and in a busy ER trauma setting, I mean, doctors, nurses, patients, their families, everyone I saw, I knew them absolutely perfectly. I mean, I knew everything about them. I knew their love, their hate, their joy, their motivations for everything they'd done. I was feeling their feelings as if they were me. There was this overwhelming, unconditional love for all of them. It was really a profound experience, because I absolutely loved them. I wanted to embrace them, and
Wow.
and yet I was experiencing this connection that was absolutely profound, even though they were strangers. I had never seen them in this life, but in that strange state, or in that realm.
So can I just ask you, did you feel yourself physical at that time? Like, how did you feel yourself? I mean, apparently they were physical, but you were seeing them not being physical. So what kind of material were you, and how did you perceive them, like physical or not physical? If you, understand my question.
Yes, I do. It's a beautiful question, because it was really strange. And I even thought about that, because everything to me, I was seeing them just like I would physically, but then I would feel them. But my feelings were super sensory. It's almost as if it was more physical, if you will. In other words, like if in this realm I have 5 senses, it felt as if I had 25 senses. I mean, I could see them, but I was feeling them. I was, I even in goodbye, I said to Tamara, it was odd. It was as if I not only felt her energy and her tears, but I could taste them. Everything was almost accentuated physically. It was even more
Wow.
physical in some ways than in this realm. But I seemed to be moving about quite effortlessly. It wasn't like, well, I've got to run up here or I've got to take these stairs. I seemed to go wherever my thoughts took me in a very effortless way. And yet it did feel quite physical. So I mean, and that's with just my experience. Explaining it is difficult sometimes, and yet I've gotten used to the fact that all I can share is my experience. That's how I experienced it, and
Yeah.
it was physical, but super physical. I felt more than I feel in this realm now.
That's really awesome to hear because I tend to feel like, heaven is this abstract thing, but I've come to learn that it's not. It's really
No,
real. It's like more real than here, is what I've learned.
and that's how I felt. It was like that was real. This is the strange, foggy dream that doesn't make sense. That was so clear and so real. And like I say, it's been 18 years ago, and I can recall it as if it was yesterday. I mean, it is so
Wow.
fresh on my mind, even when, details of the accident or my hospital stay. I mean, it's been a long time. I forget some of those things, but these out of body or near death experiences were so profound that it's as if it was yesterday.
Yeah. And then you had an amazing and so touching meeting with your son, Griffin.
Yes.
Would you like to
Yeah,
share that?
I would love to. I was in the hospital for 6 months. I mean, they did 18 surgeries on me as they attempted to repair me, and I was in ICU for a very long time. I kept throwing pulmonary embolisms or blood clots that would lodge in my lungs, and it caused drastic pneumonias, and I had severe infections. But over those months, it's almost as if I had one foot in this realm and one foot in that realm many, many times. But the profound instance you're referring to was actually at near the end of my hospital stay. I mean, I was practically ready to come home, and I was out of ICU. I was finished with surgical recovery. I was in the rehabilitation wing. They were teaching me how to perhaps, transfer from the bed into a wheelchair and things like that. But I was still not very strong. They'd just done shoulder surgery to repair this shoulder, but they were working with me that way, and I was doing much, much better. I was off the heavy narcotics, and I bring that up because, many could say, well, it was the morphine, it was these things that were
Yeah.
causing strange, visions that seemed so real. But at this point, I was simply taking some Tylenol for the pain. But I had this profound dream or experience, if you will. I mean, I went to bed, and I was finally sleeping on my side. The injuries through my midsection had been so severe. I'd laid on my back for months. In fact, I had laid on my back so long I had rubbed the back of my head bald. But on this particular night, I was finally able to lay on my side, and I went into a deep sleep. And in that sleep, I felt that light again, that loving light that was almost tangible, and that rays that I had experienced at the accident. And yet this time, it's as if the bubble went away, and I was in a beautiful, beautiful place. And when you asked about it being physical, this was so physical. I mean, I could physically feel the ground beneath my feet, and yet it was alive. I could feel the energy of it rising up through my foot and into my calf and into my thighs. And I actually began running for joy. I had been a Division I athlete, and I knew I was going to be, somewhat crippled for the rest of my life. But in this experience, I was running, and I was enjoying the way that felt, and I was moving about, and I was marveling at how real. I mean, how I was experiencing it in such a way. And then I got the message that you're not there to stay. You're only here briefly. And at about that same time, there was this corridor, and I knew intuitively to go down the corridor. So I went down the corridor, and at the end of the corridor was a crib. And I rushed to the crib, and when I got to the crib, I looked in, and there was my little boy, my little toddler that I'd lost in the accident, and he was sleeping as beautifully and as peacefully as he had been in the car seat when I had looked in the rearview mirror about an hour before the accident and just checked on him. And I swept him up and held him. And here's where it was interesting, because I felt him. He was solid against my body. And I could feel his ribs expanding with breath, and I could feel his warm breath on my neck and his soft head. And I actually asked the question, I thought, how can this be? I mean, if I'm a ghost or a spirit, how can I be experiencing this in such a profound physical way? And as soon as I had a question, the answer seemed to come. And as I asked the question, what I felt was, it's all tangible. It's just a higher vibration. It's just different energy. But I was experiencing it physically, but on a supersensory level. And as I held him, just weeping and realizing that I was really there, with him, I felt a presence come up behind me, and it was so overwhelming, and it was so cosmic and wise and powerful, and yet as this presence moved closer, I didn't dare turn around. I just held my little boy, and I was weeping, and I felt this presence coming, and I actually knew I was in the presence of God, and it frightened me a little bit. I thought, oh no, well, what I thought is, I hope I'm forgiven, is what came to me. I'd come up in a Christian church going home, and yet as this presence came closer, it was so absolutely loving and so absolutely personal. And as I held my little boy, I actually felt these divine arms just reach around and hold me. And that's when it got really interesting, because as I was held, it's almost as if we all became one, like an inhale, and then like an exhale, I became part of everything. I mean, all of a sudden I was part of everything. And this term that I had read as a boy and biblically, but it was this, I am that I am. That's what I was hearing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I am part of that. I am part of all of this. And the unconditional love I felt, I mentioned when this form first came, I thought, boy, I hope I'm forgiven. And yet what I felt was, there is nothing to forgive. You're absolutely perfect. You're divine. You're part of this cosmic realm and part of me and part of everyone that exists. And again, the words are sometimes difficult to explain what I was feeling, but I was overcome with this overwhelming love and acceptance. And I knew if that was for me, that was all of us. I mean, everyone.
So was that kind of a life review that you had? If you know that expression, I've met that many times.
Right. And I've heard that now. I mean, at the time, I was not familiar with the near-death experience or anything else, but since the books came out and I've, become acquainted with many who have had similar experiences, it was like a life review, but I was seeing my life, and the funny thing is, I saw the things I classified as mistakes, and yet what I was feeling is that's how you're judging it. There was no judgment there. There was no judgment of, oh, this was good, this was bad, this was right, or this was wrong. I may have been putting judgments on it, but in those loving, loving arms, everything was perfect. In fact, I saw the things that I judged as wrong, and I knew they were wrong, and I had done them anyway. And yet in those arms, what I felt is, look how much we love you. Look how much your life is perfect. Look how much we honor your life, your choices, your learning. I mean, it was as if I was simply here to learn, and that was all. And so, as I'm there holding my little boy, who was a toddler and just learning to walk in this life and just learning to talk, it's almost like I was experiencing that through God's eyes, that all of us are simply here learning to walk and talk, and there's no judgment at all. It's as if we're in the perfect space, doing the perfect things to learn what we came here to learn, and it's all in perfect order. And God is not angry or judging any of it. He's simply honoring us as children. and divine beings, and that we're part of the whole, if that makes any sense.
And then you fell into coma and you realized that you could hear what people were saying around you.
Yeah, I could hear them, but more than that, I could even feel what they were feeling. So I was in the coma, but I could see, hear, and feel everything that was happening around my body, but beyond as well, beyond my body. And I was aware of everything the doctors were doing, my husband, who was by my bedside, holding my hand. My mother was there caring for me. And this was in Hong Kong, in a hospital in Hong Kong. And then I became aware even of my brother in India, and he was rushing to catch a flight to come to Hong Kong to catch me before I actually died.
So what kind of, if you can explain or try to explain the kind of awareness it was, were you actually in the airplane with him, or did you just know, or did you see it, or?
It was a combination, because what it felt like was like my consciousness had expanded. So I was no longer focused out of the body. So it's no longer looking with physical eyes. But it felt like I was something much greater. And I expanded beyond the room I was in, beyond the hospital, beyond the country. And so I became aware of just everything. So it was like I had 360-degree peripheral vision. And then whatever I put my focus on, if I put my focus on my brother, doesn't matter if he's on the other side of the world, I was there. I was there with him. If I put my focus on my family, on my mom and my husband, who were by my bedside, as soon as I focused on them, I was there. And I was aware of my body lying in the bed, dying. So it's just wherever I put my focus on, there I was.
How was it like looking at your body? How did you feel? Was there a connection there, or?
I couldn't believe, it was hard to believe that small, insignificant body, because it seemed so small and, almost lifeless compared to what I was feeling in that state. It was hard to believe that was me, because in that state, I felt so powerful. I felt so strong and amazing. I just felt magnificent. It makes me emotional to even think about it now. There's no words to describe it. It was like I felt I was encompassed by this unconditional love, and I just felt so powerful. And it was in a way that I had never felt before when I was in my physical body.
Did somebody meet you? Did you move farther away from the hospital and then into this realm?
It was like the hospital and all was still there, but I expanded to take in more further things. And so I encountered my father, who had passed away 10 years prior, my best friend, who had passed away 2 years prior. So they were also, I was able to, I say see them, but it was a combination of seeing, sensing, feeling, knowing. They were there with me in that realm.
So how does it look like there, in a way? Well, and was this heaven, you think?
It might have been heaven. I think different people have different images of what constitutes heaven, hell. I actually believe that these concepts we have, particularly the concept of hell, doesn't exist in a realm beyond this one. I think we create our own hell. I believe that realm is the realm of heaven, but I also believe that we create heaven right here on earth, and that's what I felt. Because when I was in that state, I felt really amazing, but I felt this state of clarity where I just knew that we are meant to create this state here in physical life. basically create heaven here on earth. And that's really what, the feeling that I brought back with me is that we're not supposed to suffer. It felt like we have created our own suffering. We've created the dramas that cause our suffering. But if we knew differently, if we knew that we weren't meant to suffer, we can create heaven right here on earth.
Did you receive that from your father, that knowledge, or from your friend, or was it just something that came to you, or did you meet God?
To me, first of all, I want to say that God is not a physical being that is separate from any of us. Because in that state, we don't have a physical body. And when you don't have a physical body, I don't have a physical body. When we die, we lose our physical body. Your consciousness, my consciousness, and everybody else's consciousness, there's no separation between us. We merge. We're all one. We share the same consciousness. So there is no entity that is separate from you. You are everywhere. I am everywhere. Right now, we think in terms of separation because we believe that our physical body is all there is to us. But actually, you are much more than your physical body. You are everywhere. And if your body dies, if my body died, I would be able to be everywhere. And I'm not separate from my father or my friend. And actually, I'm not separate from you, which means I'm not separate from God, and neither are you. So when we die, it's like we merge with God. So you have that clarity and understanding that God has. You just have it. Nobody has to tell it to you. And it feels like you've woken up from a dream. So in the same way, if you were dreaming and you're struggling and you're dreaming something really terrible, but when you wake up, there's this clarity that, oh, it was a dream. This is what it's really like. That's what it felt like. It's like, oh my gosh, this is what it's really like. That's what it felt like.
Do we have this knowledge? Is it accessible to us? Can we tap into it right here and now?
Yes, we can. We all can. What is really sad and unfortunate is that we were born tapped into it. Animals tap into it all the time. Have you noticed animals communicate with each other without words? Even distance is not a problem. How birds can communicate with each other and how they fly together even without communicating. Dogs know your pet dog knows when you come home. My dog used to know when I was home and even before I arrived at the door. And so we have this ability to tap into the universal consciousness. We were born with it. But from the time that we're really young, we are taught and conditioned not to trust it, but instead to live from up here. We are conditioned to believe that our physical body and our five senses is all we have, and anything that cannot be seen or touched or heard or felt with our five senses, not to trust it, not to believe it. And it's unfortunate we've been taught that. It's like we've had our wings clipped. It's like we've been made handicapped with the way that we are taught, because we are born with this, but it gets conditioned out of us. So basically, it's not something that you need to go out and find and go out and search for. You have to actually undo the layers of conditioning. It's already in you. You have to undo the conditioning you have to get to it.
And you got this clear understanding that why you had cancer.
Yes.
And you went back and then the cancer disappeared, but the doctors wouldn't believe it.
Yes, they kept doing the tests over and over, and different tests. They said, it's not possible. Cancer doesn't disappear like that. We just have to find it. Finally, they had to give up and say, yes, it's gone. It has gone. And then different oncologists around the world took an interest in my case, and my records have been sent to about 5 different cancer institutes. And one oncologist said, whichever way he looks at it, I should be dead. And others have come back and just said they have no, there is no record of anybody who has ever come back from such a late stage of cancer, and to have made such a full recovery at such a rapid rate.
What I found interesting was as well, you didn't go straight to heaven. You started in this really, really dark place and not remembering that you were a human being.
Right. I had the meningitis created a fairly unique near-death experience, because when I was initially conscious deep in coma, I did not remember anything of my life before coma, and remembered nothing about humans. I had no words or language, and it was a very monotonous kind of pounding, like being in dirty jello, kind of foamy mud more than anything. And it seemed to last for a very long time. I mean, literally months, years, I don't know. It seemed to just go and go and go, and without any changing at all. And of course, people have asked me since then, well, was that purgatory or hell or something? And the thing is, I think it was just the best consciousness that my brain could muster when it was soaking in pus. I mean, it was just this little flickering of awareness that was almost nil. And yet it was kind of an awareness of existence. Occasionally there would be some ugly kind of animal face that would boil up out of the muck, and there would be some roar or chant or screech, and then it would go back in. But very unresponsive. Even though I had no language, I could wonder, who, what, where, and there was never any response to that.
But could you feel fear?
Well, since I didn't remember anything better, it wasn't as bad as it sounds now, although after a while it seemed to be very kind of suffocating. It was, in a sense, kind of frustrating, like, this is really just disgusting to be here. And of course, I had no words, but luckily, it was at a point where I was really, I think, starting to go quite mad from it all, that I was rescued by this beautiful, spinning, pure light that had these fine gold and white filaments coming, and it was coming towards me and very slowly spinning around. And the only sound I'd heard for eons had been this pounding, as if some beast were pounding on an anvil deep beneath me somewhere, very monotonous. And now, with this spinning white light, came a beautiful, perfect melody. It was this very rich and continuously changing perfect melody of music, very simple and yet very pure. And it ended up that by remembering the notes of that melody, that's what helped me to go back in there much later on. But this first time in, that white light opened like a rip in the fabric of reality around me, and led up into this brilliant, verdant valley, fertile beyond imagination, with greenery everywhere. And I had no body, there was no body image, no body awareness, but I was moving up through it because I was a speck on a butterfly wing, a beautiful butterfly, colors beyond the rainbow, colors shifting, and with millions of other butterflies all around us, and they were flying and looping in these big formations, and they would go down into the greenery and then come back up and swirl and all on this wonderful kind of ribbon of life and color. And I remember going into the greenery, there would be flowers and buds opening, blossoms opening up even as we flew by. And it was so rich and fertile and alive. And there was a beautiful girl beside me on the butterfly wing. And she was dressed in very simple, when I was writing this all up in the next few weeks after Coma, I said very peasant garb, and very simple but beautiful colors. A soft pastel peach and this deep indigo blue and this soft powder blue. And she had the most lovely smile, and her eyes, sparkling blue eyes and blonde hair. And she was so loving, and that look was such a perfect look of love and comfort. And she never said a word, but her concepts, her thoughts came straight into my mind. You are loved, you are cherished dearly forever. You have nothing to fear. There's nothing you can do wrong. Meaning, in that realm, there was nothing I could do wrong, in that spiritual realm. And that I was cherished and would be taken care of forever. And it was the most comforting. I cannot put into words the unconditional nature of that love, that there was nothing I had to do to deserve it. And I could feel it through and through. It was so strong. And it was far beyond our concepts, say, of a mother's love for a child, or a love between man and woman. I mean, this love was absolutely beyond description and so beautiful. And it showed me the power of that unconditional love. And I remember this warm breeze that blew through, and other elements in that scene, in that what I call the gateway. For one thing, I saw all these souls dancing below us, again, like presents, children laughing and dancing and playing and chasing and dogs jumping. I mean, it was a absolutely wonderful scene, just filled with joy and happiness. And I think that there were souls, and above us in the sky, these billowing clouds of color, and against this deep blue-black sky in the background, and these swooping arcs that were orbs of light, pure light beings swooping in formation up above. And in the memories of that were so strange, because everything was mixed: visual, auditory, feeling, the immense emotional joy and bliss of hearing those hymns and chants. That, I mean, it makes me shudder to even think about it now. It was so intensely blissful and joyous. And when I was writing it all up, weeks later, I called them angels, those swooping arcs of light. And there was crescendo after crescendo after crescendo of this absolute bliss coming from them, and this pure joy of existence that was all part of that love, that unconditional love of the Creator for the creation. And that's what I saw when that warm breeze blew through and changed everything, because the scene stayed the same, with all the villagers or souls dancing below us, and the arcs of angels above, and the beautiful waterfalls and pools and lush greenery and butterflies, and it all stayed the same. But when the breeze blew through, it was a perfect summer breeze. That was my first awareness of the divine.
Okay.
The love of that Creator, and that God, as many would call him, although I did not use the word God for the first few months, because that being, that presence, that awe and power was so far beyond that. And I think the word God is from our little puny human words, it's very trivializing and doesn't begin to do justice to the power and awe of that creative source. And in fact, the word I used in my writing was because that was what I remembered as the sound, the kind of resonance that was with that being. And there was a very strong sense of the three of us there, of that all-powerful, all-knowing, all-loving uh, God, creative source, and of the brilliant orb of light, and of my consciousness. But at that point, far beyond, just a human being's consciousness, but of consciousness much grander, of all life and consciousness throughout the universe, and this knowing in that sense. And I was told, you're not here to stay, you'll be going back,
Right.
but we will teach you many things. And that's exactly what happened in that core realm.
I just have a question there about
Yeah.
that you. They said that you were going back, because I know people say that, or a lot of people are saying that we have free will. That's like
Right.
a universal law. Did you have any choice to go back? What did
Well,
you didn't want?
it's interesting because at the very end of it all, I did have a choice. When I saw those six faces, and in fact, when I saw my 10-year-old son Bond, and I did not know his name, I did not know who he was. In fact, I could not have even told you what a father and a son are. But when I saw his face, and that was in the ICU on the seventh morning when I was coming out of coma. It was really the first kind of connection I had with anything in the physical world. We're seeing those six faces, and it was that love, that connection between us, that forced me. I mean, I decided to come back because of that, because until that time, my only defense had been, that I could continue to exist or cease to exist, and it did not matter. But when I saw him, and that morning he had just heard my doctors say that it was time to stop antibiotics, that basically they were giving up, and they tried to protect him from the worst predictions about my prognosis, but he overheard that. And when he did, he came running into my ICU room, and I was still on the ventilator, and he forced my eyes open, and he was looking in my eyes. My eyes were like that. And he was going, "Daddy, you're going to be okay. Daddy, you're going to be okay." And there was something about that, even though I did not understand the words, but his pleading tone and some connectionness of this intense love, and that I had to come back for him, that he needed me.
Because
Until
you felt that or heard that on the other side?
Well, it was from the other side, because I was still emerging from these billowing clouds, coming back, and his face was just kind of floating there in the muck. And that's that's when I made the choice to come back. It was out of that love for him, and out of needing to come back for him because of that intense love, even though at the time I couldn't have told you anything about what a father or a son or what anything is. I did not understand the word.
Because how did you feel yourself? I mean, you didn't have a body. Did you
Right.
look at yourself? Could you see anything?
I mean, I was just aware of the things around me.
Wow.
But there was an intensity to that connection with him. And it was really, I mean, looking back on it, I can only say it was that incredible, deep, unconditional love of a parent for a child. That's what made me choose to come back. I had to come back because I had to be there for him. But it turns out that, deep in coma, meanwhile, far before I saw his face, long before I saw his face, when I first went into the core and was told, you will be going back, you're not here to stay, we'll teach you many things. In that realm, I don't recall making a decision about going back. And part of, in a sense, I think my journey, my near-death experience is kind of the exception that proves the rule. By having this very severe meningitis, I had all my memories of earthly life and of humans and language and words. All that was gone. It was stripped away and destroyed by the ferocity of the meningitis, and yet it was done for a very special reason. It was done for a purpose, and that was because I would realize And of course, this took me many, many months to understand. But the way it was set up, I would realize, especially as a neuroscientist, that with severe meningitis, I should have experienced nothing at all. The fact that I had any experience, had any memory, is a complete shock. I would have told you before my coma, of course, such a patient would remember nothing.
Right.
And I would have been entirely wrong, because I remembered this incredibly rich odyssey that was ultra real, much more real than being in the physical realm.
When I look back at it, it was about me understanding that I was dying, that I wasn't here anymore, that I was going there, kind of. It's about surrendering. And the way it happened for me was that I was still in the physical world, just like this. And I was at this place that I know where you have the tram, and the tram, it ran straight over me. And I was like, I didn't feel any pain at all. And I instantly just realized that if I think my last thoughts before the tram hit backwards, I can kind of take, roll back the time. And that's what happened. The tram went backwards before it hit me, and I ran away. And I thought, "Whoa! I escaped!" And then, standing there thinking I had escaped, I got this knife in my back. Again, this strange feeling that why doesn't this hurt? It was starting to get a little bit annoying. Mm-hmm. And I turned back the time again and ran away. I got this gun in my forehead. Someone just came at the sidewalk. I was running down the sidewalk, and this guy coming towards me suddenly pulls up a gun, puts it in my forehead, and boom. And I was starting to get like, what is going on here? Why are everybody just killing me here? And I turned back the time and I ran. I turned back the time, I ran. And then, what it grew into was that I was like, I was so annoyed by it that I thought, I can't be bothered doing this anymore, It's like, why run away? If I'm supposed to be dead, I'd rather be dead then. Okay, let me be dead.
But you didn't have like that conscious transition out of the body, so you, or were you suddenly in those scenarios?
It's like I have like before and after this, so many experiences of being out of the body, like seeing the hospital from above. Seeing the room from above, looking at myself from the roof, from under the ceiling, I mean. And also, I saw my sister coming to visit with his new boyfriend that I hadn't seen. And then when I woke up, like some weeks later, I asked her, why did you come to visit me and then stay for like 30 seconds and having to go shopping? Why didn't you just do shopping before and then come? And she was like, how do you know this? I was looking at you from the ceiling, So many episodes that was actually the way it happened. Yeah. But so I saw my sister and this guy I didn't know and myself. But the strange thing is that I didn't think it was weird at all. It was just the way things were,
But I find myself wanting to know what comes first and what comes after. But, I'm realizing that might be impossible because in a way for you it was no time.
Yeah, exactly. It's... I said, I when I woke up again, I felt like I had been out for like 2 days. at the longest, but it was like 5 weeks. So if, it's like time is a strange thing. Yeah, time never happens, kind of. So I was so caught up in what was happening, what was going on, that it's like I didn't have time to notice time. Time hadn't anything to do with it, kind of. So, but what I'm saying is that these out of the body experiences was like before this two dying, 2 deaths.
Oh, okay.
And then after also.
Okay.
So to me it's like part of the coma thing. I'm not so sure, because it's really difficult for me to know where it was being on the ceiling, seeing yourself in the bed. You don't know what's going on in the bed, because that's not what you're seeing. Do you see what I mean? So if that was my dead body there, or what it was, I wouldn't know. But at least when my sister is there visiting me, I just kind of connect the dots, and then obviously I wasn't dead at that time, and also it's like the experience of coma and being dead are like so totally different. It's like coma is like a total chaos. I'm very, very afraid. I'm very scared.
Is that always the way it is, you think? Like when you were in a coma state, that's, this chaotic state. But when you're having a near death or you're dying, that's another type of experience?
To me, it's very, very different. Because as I'm getting to, that dying has that's what the 4 phases is really about, is to go further into the process without the fear. So it kind of that's kind of the process, that it takes away the fear before you can die, kind of.
Before you can fully transition in a way?
Yes. Okay. And that's so this first phase is just like when I come to the point where I say, or I think, or whatever you call it, that I can't be bothered running away anymore. So if I'm supposed to die, okay, just let me die then. Then everything changed, like the physical, it was like completely gone, like this, gone. And I'm in like this vast open space. I don't know if what is like the surroundings, because I immediately get very, very focused on, first in the distance, and then getting closer, this light that is like, it kind of pulls me in, it's like all my attention, and the feeling I get from just looking at this light, it's like falling in love in a way that I've never been able to, it's like falling head over heels completely in love. It's like I'm just floating. If I should guess the color, I just turned pink, and it's like this strange sensation of being with my mom, even if it's not my mom. I've never been here before, but it's home. It's like all this. So it's like this light. It's not like a source of light. It's not like a light bulb. It's like the rays of the light, or the the light itself becomes visible, as if we don't see the sun because we see all the light, all the rays from it, instead.
Did you feel like that this is God? Was that a thought?
No, there are no thoughts here, because the experience is so total. It's like filling everything, so that there's no room for thought. It's like, let's say you're 6 years old, you've been wanting this bicycle all your life, and suddenly it's your birthday, and there it is. It's nothing else exists for do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Only a 1,000 times bigger than that, because it's like this feeling of love that kind of, it touches you. It's not in a like a subtle way, but it's really working with you. It's almost like you feel that you're activated by that light. The light activates kind of something inside of me, and then it pulls me in, and so I'm like, I'm just completely at awe with this wonderful feeling of everything being the same, kind of, because it's like when we fall in love here, I often feel that I'm the only one here who is in love right now. It's like something that goes on within me, but here it's like it is what is going on. Everything is made of this love. So it's like being totally in love in a place that is totally in love. And that's all there is. And then I kind of get pulled into this light, and suddenly I'm not outside of it looking at it, I'm inside of it. And then suddenly I get this, what did I say yes to now then? It's like this feeling, it's so typical of me to just say, okay, yeah, let me die then. But what did I say yes to? I was like, have I agreed to not exist anymore? Am I not existing?
But that means that you were aware of yourself again, in a way.
Yeah, and that's, it's I can't explain it, but what happened was that I was looking to see if I existed, or if am I nothing now? So I just look for my body, and thank God I can see my body still.
How was the body? How did it feel? Like, was it different?
Definitely different, yeah, because it's just a faint, tiny half a second that it's I'm still here, because what I'm really, what's the word, flabbergasted over is the fact that I see my body, but it's completely, I can see straight through it. And what I see is that this light that I'm now bathing in, that is what I'm made of. This light is the stuff that my body is also made of, so it's like a transparent container, and on the inside of it is the same light as is on the outside. And it's really, I start kind of playing a little with this, because I move my arms like this, and I see that the light stands still, kind of, and I change what is inside the body. So it's like, do you see what I mean?
I get pictures in my mind, and I've also had some astral travel experiences, and then I've also seen my astral body.
Oh yeah.
I think that was my experience of it.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about that when I hear you, but it might be something different. But I felt that that body was very solid, and I could stretch my finger and it got long.
Oh yeah.
But was your body solid?
No. But it's. I think I'll get to that. Is that okay? Because the thing that I just kind of want you to see is this. You know, if I had a bottle of water now, and you can see the water. If I took a bottle of water, put on the cap, and I take it around in the water, it's the same water inside the bottle. It doesn't mix with what's in the river. But this light is like, it shifts, you know, it's like the water inside is the same as on the outside. So when I move my hand, the water stands still, kind of, you know, so I change. Yeah. Maybe the English isn't good enough to show you this, but
Bear with us.
rewind and see it again. You'll get it. But then suddenly it's like realizing that I am made of this light. I also realized that there's a lot more of this light. So what is that? So I start looking around me, and I see the obvious. Oh, of course, it's everybody else also. Well, of course, if I am made of this light, then of course everybody else is too. And that's the. This is kind of the what changed my life forever. This that comes now, because you know this light, it's like never ending. I can't see the end of it, and it can appear as the light, or its parts, or whatever. It feels like this magic stuff that, you know, it can show itself in so many ways. So I see the light, but I also see everybody else suddenly, you know, these other see-through bodies here. And then it's so genius, you know, because since it is this tiny part of the light that is now entering here or seeing himself in it, the light has put the other little parts that I know best closest to me. So I'm kind of welcomed into this light by those who I know the most. So there stands like my father and my mother, my grandfather, my grandmother, or four of them. In Norway, we have different words for we call it mother and father and things like this. But so it's all my four grandparents, my two parents, who are all deceased, but here they're alive. I've never seen them look so good ever. and also I saw my brother, who was, you know, at that time sitting by the bed.
Who was alive?
Who was alive. So to me it was, well, okay, is it... Okay, so we're all here? There's a part of us that is always here?
You didn't think that he was dead?
No, I didn't. No. It's like kind of, I knew, no, he's not dead, but he's also here. So it just turned out to me, it ended up just being this question. Yeah. Is there a part of us that is always here? Or I tend to nowadays to think the other way around, that this is a part of us that is here, and all of us is there.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, to me it makes a lot of sense. But
I just have to say, I so liked the picture that you gave me now, that they come forward because you knew that part of the light the best.
Yeah.
That was really nice. I've never heard that before.
No, it's almost like this light is able to prepare the greatest welcome ever, It's like whoever would be your favorite to meet is who you meet. It's like, it's very moving,